is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Fans with Attitude. I'm Daniel. That's my boy Drew. We're just a couple of college kids coming at you with some kind of hot takes. If you've ever seen First Take Undisputed, well, this is the same kind of show, except we have a live chat. So we will be able to see comments and questions that you guys may have. Make sure to like and subscribe to join the Attitude Era uh, to see future shows. With that being said, let's get started.
All right. I've got the chat up too now this time, so we don't miss that. Let's see. What is on the menu for today? 1 second. I apologize. All right. So, first things first, and of course, I have to be the one to introduce this because it painfully has to bother me the most. If you're a Patriots fan like me and you were hoping for a quiet offseason, too bad for you. Something had to come out. So as everyone saw on I want to say this was Sunday, Saturday, when it first broke. Robert Kraft, owner of the New England Patriots, got caught in a prostitution bust, basically. And he was charged with soliciting prostitution and hasn't been formally arrested yet. But I mean, this is a pretty big deal. And although there was a report that said there are bigger names out there than him, doesn't change the fact that he was, supposedly involved. Obviously, he denied it through claims through his representatives. But as of right now, what the public sees is that Robert Kraft, owner of the Patriots, was involved in a prostitution bust. So I'm going to start off by asking you, what do you think this means for the league? And then what do you think it means for like the Patriots specifically for this upcoming season?
Well, speaking on part of the Patriots, you guys always somehow, we've got 6 rings, but we're still an underdog. So
my dad is a horrible person, dude. This man said poor choice of words came out.
Thank you, Ed Piscaro. Anyway, the Patriots are going to use that to, we're the underdog, coming through controversy. I don't think if you put yourselves in a situation to do it, you won't get caught, essentially. I don't think you should do it at all, but everybody knows that guys do it. To quote Dave Portnoy of Barstool, Robert Kraft was going in for a rub and tug, which every man in America has done. So, if that's all that he did, then it's not as big a deal. Obviously, it's still like a big deal, and you shouldn't do it. But I think that if it comes out that like he was just there getting a massage and then things happened, it's a lot less big of a deal, and it won't have such an impact on the league as if it was like Robert Kraft was sex trafficking women. Then that should levy some heavier fines and probable like having to sell the team out of the family and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, there's going to be people out there that just hate the Patriots, and they're not concerned about, the actual people involved. Like, this is a serious deal, It's not just a prostitution thing. It was like there's like sex trafficking involved. Like, this is a lot bigger than, just Robert Kraft gets caught in a prostitution thing. Like, I think people are so focused on like him getting in trouble and making sure that they don't even care about the real situation at hand. But although I do agree that if it is true, and obviously you have to let the legal system play out, if it is true what happened and he is involved, then he definitely deserves some kind of suspension, if not more than that. Definitely a big fine. I mean, he's a billionaire, so I guess that won't affect him necessarily. But I don't think you can necessarily detriment like the team. Like, you can't strip like draft picks or something like that away from them because it has nothing to do with like the integrity of the game itself. It's a bad look for a team that already has a lot of, negative,
history.
Yeah, a lot of negative history when people think of them that aren't, in New England. So that's what we're gonna say about that so far. And Daniel is gonna bring us into our next topic here.
Yeah. So this is kind of, I guess, breaking news. Though that's one of our dogs barking. But I know a lot of people watch the show Last Chance U. This new coach at Independence, Coach Jason Brown, Was controversial in the first season, and I'm sure they were in the process of finishing up the second season with them. And it came out today that he texted a German player. Uh, he texted a German player something very inappropriate that I'm not going to repeat on the air. But if you want to look into it, he said something very disrespectful, and then he has now stepped down as the head coach at Independence Community College. So I want to hear your thoughts on that.
You want me to tell you? You want me to say my opinion on this text, or like what do you?
On the actions of coach, like what's your initial reaction to like how would you process this?
Dude, honestly, like just the like guy in me just wants to like be like low key. It was hilarious what he said. But at the same time, this is a day and age where that's just not gonna fly. You can't be saying stuff like what he said. And I didn't hear you. Did you say exactly what he specifically said?
He said, and I apologize if this offends anybody. He texted a German player that he recruited. I will be your new Hitler, or I'm your new Hitler.
Yeah. So again, this in a guy sense, people would be like, "Oh, it's just a joke. It's funny." But in reality, in 2019, that's over the top. Like people are gonna be way too sensitive to that. I definitely agree. It's an offensive thing, and you should not be saying that. I don't care who it is. And I think he got what he deserved. I mean, he made a major mistake, whether he admits that it's his fault or not. I mean, he made a huge mistake, and firing him was the best choice of action there. What's your piece on that?
So as somebody who does kind of want to go into coaching, and after watching this Coach Brown through his season at Last Chance U, he was kind of controversial. He probably wasn't the most well respected coach, especially by his staff and his players. I think the fans like him because he got them to win games, but he didn't do it in the most sportsmanlike and respectful way. He cussed out his coaches, his players. So, this kind of culminates his whole persona. I mean, he is a guy from Compton, white guy from Compton, so he has that kind of attitude about him. And when guys get recruited by him, especially now that they saw him on TV, it obviously it brought a lot of guys in. I mean, you got a guy coming from Germany or of German descent directly playing football for you. I mean, that's pretty impressive to get a foreign, a European player over here, and then to go and pull something like that, it loses almost all street cred. I mean, I would be surprised if he gets another job anywhere, because no head coach is going to want him to be a coordinator. So, if you're going to treat your players like that, why in the heck would you? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me as a leader. Like you should respect everybody who's under, that you're leading, and to go and do that and disrespect, one of your team, one of the guys who's working for you, your dad needs to chill.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at what Daniel is saying
No,
at all.
but it's
Our loyal fan Ed Piscaro titled the Patriots scandal "Rubgate" for us, and then said he told a Russian player he would coach him into the
KGB.
KGB.
So if we break down laughing, that's why, because
our fans are so great, and that's exactly what we love about.
We love you guys. But yeah, I mean, just as like a leader, I don't understand why you would kind of compare yourself to Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
Next up, Joe Flacco, the Super Bowl MVP, controversial elite quarterback,
elite,
has been traded to the Denver Broncos to replace the Minnesota Vikings star quarterback, Case Keenum.
Okay, well, so obviously this happened. I want to say this actually happened about a week ago or two. I forgot to bring it up last show, so I felt we should talk about it because I don't. All I could say when I saw it was, why? You have Case Keenum, who's literally like the same thing without the lucky Super Bowl ring because you have a defense that could carry you. Um, Although granted his defense was pretty good last year and he choked at home against the Eagles. But regardless, um, I was like literally you just have two of the same guy, except Joe Flacco's on this he's still on that massive contract he got after winning the Super Bowl. So whatever John Elway, who's considered one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, I obviously don't agree with that statement. That's just a general consensus. I don't know what he's thinking as the general manager of the Denver Broncos. Like, if you want your team to be good, shouldn't you be like looking in the draft maybe for a quarterback who's young, has a lot of potential, or like I don't know anywhere else? Maybe Nick Foles. He's still putting in some good football. I mean, we haven't seen Joe Flacco play good football. I can't like ever since that Super Bowl season. Honestly, I don't remember anyone actually thinking of him as like an elite quarterback or anything like that. So I don't know what the Broncos are thinking with this one, but it'll be interesting to hear your side of how you know what you think of the situation.
As a couple of quarterback aficionados, the two of us, we've been
Oh, of
spoiled with
course.
elite quarterback play, other than Brett frickin' Hundley and oh dear God, Deshaun Kaiser. Matt, even when Matt Flynn was the back, he was playing. Like I mean, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, between the three quarterbacks, the two of us, we've been blessed to see some elite quarterback play. And Joe Flacco was never elite. He was never elite. Um, I don't understand why John Elway did this. It makes absolutely no sense because Case Keenum is about the same age, maybe a little younger. Doesn't have the absolute rocket that Joe Flacco has or once had, but your dad's a hater. Anyway, it makes no sense. I think John Elway is like, oh, I won a Super Bowl when I was 37. Like, I can get Joe Flacco to do it too. No, you can't. I'm sorry. This is such a dumb move. And the Ravens made out like bandits. They got his huge contract off the books. And, like, it's just so dumb. They're paying Case Keenum a dumb amount of money
Yeah.
for 1 year. I'll say, oh, we'll take this giant contract. Like, John Elway is trying to make these mid-level quarterbacks into what he was, and it's just not going to happen.
Just a little more piece to add to that. I just think they're still chasing after that. Like, can we get that like Peyton Manning type thing? Like they got Peyton Manning near the end of his career, and he put up that one historical season. It was insane, and yet they still went to the Super Bowl and got decimated by the Seattle Seahawks. I can't remember the score. It was embarrassing. It was a horrible. Like everyone talks about
42-3.
Yeah, I mean everyone talks about this year's Super Bowl being trash. Like that was pretty bad. Granted, there was still some scoring, um, but the year that they did end up winning, Super Bowl 50, Peyton Manning was playing like garbage. Like they could have put anyone at quarterback that year, and that defense with Von Miller and all those guys was just so talented. That was enough to just get him that ring that year. So I don't know why he keeps trying to find that like next quarterback when honestly, if you just focus on the defense, which is clearly the strength of that team, you could get somewhere with just that. Like you could have just kept Keenum there and just built the defense up. But now you take on this contract, and I honestly, like I said, like we both agree with, like I have no idea what they're doing. But
Yeah.
moving on from that, because I could rant about that pretty much
Oh
all
yeah.
day.
Brock Osweiler was the starting quarterback for a majority of that season.
That's right. That's right.
So that tells you how good that defense was.
Exactly. But yeah, moving on from that. As
Another
previously stated, a name I mentioned was Nick Foles potentially for the Broncos, but clearly, now that Joe Flacco's there, that ain't happening. So I want to ask you. We can all assume that Nick Foles is not going to stay on the Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz is the future for them, and that's what all their players are saying, their coaches. So where do you think is a good landing spot for Nick Foles in this offseason?
um well, I think, the Eagles paid him, right?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so
I'm sorry. He said Aaron Rodgers' State
yeah,
Farm agent could have won that Super Bowl.
no, it's true. Peyton Manning sucks. But
But yes, no, they gave him that. They like signed him to the extension or something like that.
yeah, they gave him like $20 million
20
from,
million. Yeah.
which, I mean, okay. Um I mean, I could go off and be kind of goofy and say he should stay there because Carson Wentz has been labeled as a bad teammate. But no, I don't believe any of that crap that came out about Carson Wentz. Thanks, Brady. I mean, Nick Foles, it'd be interesting to see him go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think it'll happen just because, like, Blake Bortles sucks. You know, they should get a young guy to replace him, not a 30-some-odd-year-old guy who, yeah, has played good in the Eagles system, but it's not nearly the same thing as Jacksonville and what Doug Marrone is doing down there. So I don't know how well he would thrive there. I think probably the best spot for him to go would be Tennessee.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that at all.
Nope.
What makes you say Tennessee?
Mariota's always hurt.
Agreed.
He could use some, experience, especially when it comes to playoffs. He's never been there. Nick Foles has been there a couple times. He won a Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP. Outdueled Tom Brady.
That's true.
Outdueled.
He played a great game, and I will leave it at that. Yeah. I don't know about outdueled, but I'll leave it at that.
That's why I put it in quotes. Okay. But, I think and then, again, Mirror's always hurt, so it could be interesting. Wow, Brady's really loving the show out there. He's
what a supporter.
He's a guy that could come in and help bolster that team, especially if Mariota is going through, I think he broke his leg a couple years ago and his shoulder's been messed up recently, I think. So, having that kind of security blanket and then another guy who comes in and adds another point to the offense, especially Mike Vrabel. He's a defensive guy. Nick Foles comes in with that Eagles offense mentality, knows how to run RPO, which I think could work very well for them, especially with Derrick Henry and Dion Lewis. Be able to run like a triple option, RPO, a bunch of different things, kind of a college-style offense down there could help them a lot.
Yeah, no, I actually have an interesting take on it. And the likelihood of this happening, because it's within the division, it's probably not going to happen. But I think another place where Nick Foles could probably thrive is the New York Giants. And I say that because, they're that one position away, I think, from being a decent team in the NFL. Eli Manning has just been so bad for so long that it hides the fact, OBJ is one of the best receivers in the league. But he's not putting up, as big a numbers as most because he doesn't have that quarterback play to go along with it. And now Saquon Barkley, I mean, everyone saw what he did in his first year, and nothing tells me he's not going to continue that. Now, you throw Nick Foles into that situation, get Eli Manning out of there finally, which sadly I think the route they're going to take is the draft. But I just think Nick Foles is a better option. He's established himself as a solid player. I think that offense would fit him very well. And like I said, I think that alone, that move could put the Giants possibly into, I don't know about winning the division because the rest of the offseason still needs to be seen. But, I mean, that would be a scary team if I really, and me, I don't like the Giants at all. I would never want them to get back to the Super Bowl if we're there again. But that'd be, I think that's an underrated move. I don't, like I said, with it being in the division, I don't know if the Eagles would do it, but just something to think about.
The only thing I would add to that is Nick Foles is about as mobile as Eli Manning, and with that Giants offensive line, he will be taking hits like no other. But if they did do that, I guess they could use that first-round pick and draft maybe Jonah Williams, the left tackle from Alabama, help shore up that offensive line, especially with Will Hernandez from UTEP that they got last year. He's pretty dang good. So.
And, I mean, they still have Nate Solder at left tackle. They just gave him that fat contract. You assume he's going to – I mean, you assume he's going to return to at least a above-average form.
No,
last year wasn't a great year. Okay. So we're going to play a little game of yes or no with this whole Gronk retirement. So, do you think this is going to happen? Yes or no, and obviously why?
This offseason? No. I think Gronk will retire and go to the WWE whenever Tom Brady goes. That's what I hope. I think it'd be hilarious if Gronk – I mean, could you just see big old 6'7", 270-pound Gronk freaking flying off the top rope? That'd be hilarious. I think he'd be great at it too.
He'd be the champ.
Gronk has openly stated, Brady's my quarterback. If I got traded anywhere, I would retire. So basically, he's done when Brady's done. Um, I do think he needs to get off the TB12 method. I don't think that works for his body type and body size, but he says he's devoted to it. But that's just me.
Yeah. So obviously, right after we won the Super Bowl, I was telling myself, it'd be great if he did retire. I mean, he played a really good game. He played a really good playoffs just in general, honestly. And for a guy that everyone said, had a terrible year, like I think they underrate the fact that even though he doesn't have the same speed that he used to. Obviously, he's not that like dynamic tight end that we saw, 2010 to like 2014 or so. Um, but he's still got a lot left in the tank, I think, to offer. He's still a great catcher. He still can block very well. I mean, I don't think they should, again, like you said, I don't think the Patriots should move on from him because I think he'll just retire whenever Brady does because they just have that much of a brotherhood there that, you know, he's going to want to keep playing as long as he can. And I don't think that, his career injuries, I think Gronk, I think he realizes he can't do as much. I think we all can agree with that. But granted, he still can perform at a high level. So I don't think he retires this offseason because I think the team, like I've said, I think they still think they can make it back to the Super Bowl and maybe even win another one. So why leave a situation where you still think you can be at the highest level?
All right. Speaking of kind of quarterbacks, Brady and Nick Foles, Joe Flacco were brought up. There's a lot of quarterbacks, in this year's draft that's not really being hyped as a quarterback draft. It's a more defensive heavy draft with Nick Bosa being set as #1 overall pick. But there are about 4 quarterbacks who could go first, second round that are being talked about a lot. Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins, Daniel Jones, and Drew Lock. So where do you think those guys would best fit?
Okay, so I've been seeing a lot. I'll just go in order, Murray to Lock the way you said it. So Kyler Murray, I think that he really could fit well as that #1 pick, and I know that's kind of weird to think about, but Cliff Kingsbury, the new coach of the Cardinals, has openly stated he would love to coach him, and I just think he can fit well for that type of offense. And I think people are just saying he shouldn't be because of his size, but as I said in the last video, his size. You see a guy like Russell Wilson, his size shouldn't mean anything. Oh, hold on.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of go in there because dog stuff is happening right now, but I think Kyler Murray does fit in pretty good with the Arizona Cardinals. But I'd love to see him with the New York Giants. I think it'd be really cool to have that happen. Just Kyler Murray, Odell, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, and Saquon Barkley. I mean, that offense just sounds unstoppable. Obviously, they need to shut that offensive line, but with those dynamic kind of guys, I mean, you saw Saquon Barkley had like 2,000 all-purpose yards, like with one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL.
All right, so I'm back from puppy gate, I guess we can call it. So back to my original point. Yes, my personal opinion is Murray definitely should go #1. I don't think he will just because of the size debate, but I think he could fit that offense perfectly. Cardinals could trade away Rosen and get some more draft, stock and gear up for next year and maybe, compete a little bit in that division. Obviously, you got the Rams, you got the Seahawks, and the 49ers might even be pretty good next year, so it'd be interesting. But, you could do something with that. Dwayne Haskins is a guy that I think he's going to end up going top 10, even though I don't personally believe he deserves it or that it'll pan out well. I mean, yes, he played good in college, but somehow every quarterback that goes to Ohio State ends up having a good year. And then they go to the NFL and you forget their name in, 2 or 3 years. I mean, I feel a similar pattern here with this guy. He has the potential to be, good if he lands in the right situation, but I just feel like he's going to get picked up by a team like the Jaguars or the Giants, and I don't know if he necessarily fits those systems well. And I don't know. I just don't see him panning out. Maybe if he gets to another team and it works out there, but to start, I don't think that those teams fit him well. And then um, Daniel Jones. Did you already talk about him? I'm sorry with all that
Nah,
going on. Okay, so
I just
getting
think Kyler
into
Murray.
all right, sorry. If you want to give your piece on Dwayne Haskins, and then I'll continue.
I think Dwayne Haskins. I know they won't get him, but I think it'd be pretty cool if he went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's the kind of same type of quarterback as Big Ben. Kind of fits that mold of a big guy who can take some hits, but has a strong arm to air it out downfield. I think that guy fits their system. You know, they did draft Josh Dobbs 2 years ago,
Hmm.
but I never really thought he could be the NFL quarterback. Not saying he can't, but I think if they wanted to, they should honestly they should trade Antonio Brown up and go get him. Trade Antonio Brown for a first round pick and go get him.
That's interesting because they're drafting what 12 right now, I think.
We're 12.
Oh, okay, then they're a little
I
higher
think
than
they're
that.
18 or
Yeah,
20.
sorry, they're high teens. Yeah, I mean that'd be interesting. For sure, because you're right. I mean, he does have that size. He probably can take some hits. It's just obviously he's probably a little more mobile than Big Ben. Um, But moving into Daniel Jones, quarterback from Duke, who had his best game of his college career in the I don't remember what bowl it was, but in his bowl game, he threw for like 5 touchdowns, 350 something yards. He showed a lot of potential in that game. Um, and obviously when you're playing a bowl, it's decent competition. They had to be at least 6-6 to make it. So I think that definitely helped him out. I see this as a guy that falls either late first or early second round. I don't see any quarterbacks other than I mean, I think Locke will end up actually getting drafted first round, although I think he more so deserves to be in the second round. But I think Jones is a guy that the Patriots are looking at as a potential Brady successor. Not that I'm saying he will be, but I think the potential is there with the first, or they have 2 second-round picks, so it could be there too. So that's my, you know, personal. I think that's where he might end up landing, and it's not a bad place to land. Patriots seem to do pretty good with that. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo when they drafted him second round, I think second or third. He's now got $150 million, and he played all but 4 games for the Patriots. I mean, it's a good position for him, especially with Brady being, he'll be turning 42 this year. The run's got to end eventually, and I think Jones has the potential to be the next guy up.
Yeah, I think Daniel Jones is probably a better fit, obviously, as a backup starting off. Uh, I guess the one team I could see him kind of starting for is the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's the same type of quarterback as Blake Bortles. I think he's better than Bortles. um, but that's probably the only team I could see him starting for. There's a couple other teams that I could see him being a backup for. Obviously, like the Packers wouldn't draft him, in the first round. But if he sort of fell like the third or fourth, maybe I could see him getting a backup because Sean Kaiser sucks. Um, but yeah, otherwise, I think Daniel Jones will be a decent quarterback in the future. Probably a couple Pro Bowl potential. I don't think he's going to be a superstar quarterback, but yeah, I think he's probably suited best to follow a veteran quarterback and kind of learn the NFL game.
All right, and that leaves us with Missouri quarterback. That's correct, right? Missouri, Drew Lock.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure. Didn't want to get that wrong. So Drew Lock was a name that I mean I didn't really hear about him a whole lot during the regular season or like the college football season, but it seems like every year. I mean, you get 3 or 4 guys, um, and he just so happens to be one of them. That I mean, there's always like, oh, he's got the right build, he's got the right intangibles. He could be a NFL quarterback, and I mean. I'm not gonna say he's good or bad because, like I said, I didn't really see a whole lot on him. I'd have to, when leading up to the draft, hopefully we'll do a a draft special or something like that covering it. But um, I think Drew like a situation. I'm just trying to think of situations where a team is going to need a quarterback and where they might get it. And I don't know. I don't. The thing is, I don't know if John Gruden, is bought into um Derek Carr.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking my two picks for where Drew Lock could end up is the Raiders, and that would be obviously Gruden trades away Carr, gets some draft value or just a top, like a pretty good player, because it's not that Carr's a bad quarterback. It just Raiders just had a really bad year last year. So I'm thinking that's a potential spot. And also, I mean, I think the Redskins should keep an eye out for him for sure. You saw what happened to Alex Smith. I mean, almost as bad an injury as Joe Theismann. Um, and the quarterback struggles that they had. I mean, they had a chance to make the playoffs out of that. That division was weak this year. They had a chance. If they had Alex Smith, I think they would have made the playoffs over the Eagles. But they didn't. I think they had, what was it, like Josh Jones, Josh Johnson, yeah, who's now I think playing in the AAF or something like that. I mean, they didn't have a solid backup, and I think Drew Lock could come in and, like Daniel Jones, and sit a couple year or two if Alex Smith is able to come back, which I think he should be. And kind of learn behind him, because I mean Alex Smith has some good experience in the NFL. So Drew Lock go in there. That wouldn't be a bad situation for the Redskins to have either.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I didn't, I kind of forgot about the Redskins. I'll give you two more teams that I think Drew Lock could go to. I've seen Kyler Murray go to Miami, but I think Drew Lock could do it. I think Tannehill's got a little bit left in the tank. I say they roll with him another year, take up Drew Lock in the second round, use that first round pick to, again, either shore up their offensive line, grab another receiver, or, I mean, defense always helps. So I say they could get him with the second round pick, or the Cowboys. I don't like the Cowboys. So Skip Bayless, we'll go toe to toe with that one. I can't stand the Cowboys, but I think Drew Lock could fit in well there, especially that would allow them, again, get a first round receiver. Actually, no, they can't, because they traded it for Amari Cooper. But that would be a use of their second round pick, especially because Dak's coming up on his rookie deal ending. He's not that good of a quarterback, in my opinion. He can play good, but I don't think he's going to be able to carry that team, especially if Zeke's having a bad game. I mean, you saw against the Rams, Zeke got shut down and Dak wet the bed. He couldn't do anything. So
yeah,
I think, shaking it up, or at least putting some pressure on Dak, with another young guy, could do him well, or it could backfire and get Jason Garrett finally fired, and then the Cowboys franchise could get on the upswing.
Don't know how that hasn't happened yet.
Yep. So I saw something on ESPN today that said, it was put out by Forbes, I think. It was the top 10 most valuable football franchises. And out of the top 10 most valuable, only 3 of them had won a Super Bowl in the past 15 years, and 4 of them had won a Super Bowl in this millennium. It's ridiculous, because you got the Rams, the Giants, the Patriots, and the recent Super Bowl champions, Eagles. They didn't win this year, but last year. So that kind of begs the question, why would a guy go to like a big market team if they're not going to win?
I think that's a very interesting question. And the thing about this that I see is that the NFL and all these other sports that, have a salary cap and stuff, I think they're a very unique situation compared to like Major League Baseball, where you can just spend as much money as you want and get the guys that you want, in which case, that really is a true meaning of a, large market team. Whereas in the NFL, I mean, like you said, it was New England, Philly, and New York that have won in the last 15 years. All these other teams out there, Seahawks, I'm trying to think of some other, Denver, Green Bay, Baltimore. I mean,
Pittsburgh.
yeah, I don't know why people are so stubborn about that whole idea of I got to go to the big market teams, because I'm sorry, but if you're not the If you're not the New England Patriots and you've won 6 in the last 18 years, I don't think there's another team out there that's won more than 2 in this millennium. I don't understand that. I've never understood why players are so dead set and I got to be on the big market when you could go to a smaller market team that probably has a better chance of winning and you could get paid there because you're the star. Um, so I think that was like when you brought that up earlier today, I thought that was very interesting. But like I said, it just shows that the salary cap does its job and doesn't allow the New York team, the Philly team, um, the LA team, those aren't the teams winning the championships year in and year out. It's very spread out amongst, even the smaller market teams. I mean, you have a team like Jacksonville last year who was in the AFC championship and, was 1 quarter away from going to the Super Bowl. I mean, so it just goes to show that the value of the franchise doesn't add up to, success, so to speak.
Yeah. When I saw it, I was kind of appalled. I was like, you know, these teams aren't winning. Why are they worth so much money? Because especially in like the greatest of all time conversation, rings mean a whole lot. You can't say Dan Marino's the greatest quarterback of all time. He's got no rings. So, it really kind of places the value of things, kind of puts them in perspective. Obviously, money's not everything. You want your legacy and your name to be there, but if you're a guy like Carmelo Anthony in the NBA, people know he stayed in New York because of the money. So obviously, he didn't care about the things, like winning in championships and legacy. He'll probably still be in the Hall of Fame, but his legacy will kind of be like Charles Barkley, where he was this great player, a phenom in college, and never got to the pinnacle. So I think it's interesting, and it also does show how the NFL's salary cap, plays a big role. And you don't have teams like the Yankees of the Major League Baseball that just dominate for such a long period of time.
For sure. Now, okay, so that's enough NFL talk for the day, but we are going to continue our weekly coverage of the Alliance of American Football because we both agree it's a very interesting league and it's still, shown it has a lot of potential. But today we're just going to spotlight one player. I'm sure most of you know him as, one of the biggest draft busts of our recent time, Trent Richardson, former Cleveland Browns 3rd overall pick, then to the Colts, and then, pretty much out of the league. But he is, he's playing very well for the Birmingham Iron in the AAF. Just yesterday, his team improved to 3-0. He went for 17 carries, 46 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So obviously, the carries to yards ratio isn't that great, but he did score 3 times. I'm pretty sure he's now up to 5 rushing touchdowns on the year, something around that. So my question to you is, do you think at some point he could return to the NFL?
No. And I base that on the fact that he's a little older. Running backs it is hard to get, maybe not play running back in the NFL, but his yards per carry is 2.7 for that game. Like, yeah, he can find the end zone, but there's also a lot of guys who can find the end zone. If he gets those yards per carry, if he had 17 carries and 84 yards and 3 touchdowns, now we're talking.
Yeah.
Obviously I've seen when I watch the AAF, it's a lot more committee based. The offensive lines also don't play as well in that league. So I do think if he steps up that production and shows that at his older age that he can do something that these younger backs can't, that will get him a spot. If he keeps putting up touchdowns, he might be able to secure himself on a practice squad and then work his way back up. But just based off, these first 3 games and the low yards per carry, I don't see him going back to the NFL. But, you can't knock a guy who can put the ball in the box.
For sure. And I don't think, yeah, like you said, like with that yards per carry type thing, I don't think he could ever return to the NFL and be like a premier back. He's older. He doesn't, I don't think he has the stamina to carry, 25 times a game, and he's not getting the yards per carry that's needed in the NFL. But kind of like what you were saying about how the AAF is a very much like a committee-based, offense. I think Trent Richardson, if he keeps doing this throughout the rest of the season, keeps finding the end zone, nothing tells me that he can't go to an NFL team and be in a committee type offense and just be that like third down back. You need that first down for 3rd and 1. He could go do it. You need that 3rd and goal on the 1 yard line to score a touchdown. He can go and get it. I mean, and again, like you said, with the weaker offensive lines in the AAF, obviously the NFL is going to have some better offensive lines that he's running through. So I think if he ended up in the right situation, he could be like a running back by committee, just short yardage situations. And I'm not saying he will return to the NFL, but I think that type of like play kind of opens the door for him a little bit. Because
Yeah.
obviously, after all, a guy could go for 150 yards, but if you're not getting in the end zone, your team's losing, doesn't mean a whole lot.
Yeah. So kind of backtracking a little bit, we're going to talk about the MLB right now. And it's, there's their offseason. Not a whole lot of guys are getting signed. But one thing that does kind of need to get brought up, especially after this Manny Machado, $300 million, and Bryce Harper, it's come out that he wants like $350 million. Does the MLB need a salary cap?
I'm just gonna go out there and say yes. I mean, I know a lot. Again, baseball is such a traditional sport, so changing anything in it is a tough task. But it's just it's so kind of it's almost like frustrating to watch. Year in and year out, you kind of know who's gonna be the best teams. It's gonna be Boston. It's gonna be the Yankees. It's gonna be an LA team, something like that. I mean, because it's just they have the money. And even when they don't have the money, they can still just overspend and then pay luxury tax or whatever. And because it's, like billionaires that own the team, none of that matters. Like, it's just like I think the level of competition and like the spread of talent would be a lot better if the MLB set a salary cap. And I'm not saying it needs to be as low as like some of these other sports, like like football or the NBA or NFL or NBA or anything like that, because clearly there's a lot more money in baseball. But um, I just don't think when you're giving a guy a 10-year, 300 million contract and it is fully guaranteed, like it's basically, and I can't remember who quoted this when I was watching this morning, but on ESPN, someone basically said like, you're paying his retirement fee because out of that 10-year contract with Machado on the Padres, you're probably gonna get 7 years out of that or something like that, and then that still leaves 3 years and 90 million if I'm doing my math correctly on that deal. And they're obviously not just going to give him 90 million in 3 years if he retires. What they do is they spread that 90 million out over the next 20 years and give him like a small percentage per year. I mean, the Red Sox are still paying, I'm pretty sure, Manny Ramirez. There's the Mets still paying off some guy, and they're out of the league for like 12 years and still making like 2 million a year doing nothing. I mean, that's just like I find that kind of like a joke to the game, and I just think, like I said, the spread of talent in the league would be a lot better if the salary cap was in place.
Yeah. I think, that's something that the NFL has kind of shown, especially with more young talent being able to come into the game, that teams can't just go out there and spend, $80 million in free agency and expect to be the best team in the NFL because they have that money. So in the MLB, I think it needs to, especially because they have the farm system. It's a lot harder in the NFL because they don't have farm teams. Regardless of what happens with the AAF, these farm systems are in place for a reason, and that you should focus more on, bringing up the guys that you chose them. Those are the guys that are most likely to buy into your organization. These are the guys that you take out of college. Like they're going to be loyal to you. And if you're like, oh, well, we drafted you to be our third baseman. Oh, psych, we got Manny Machado, 10 years. You're never going to play.
Yeah.
It's like, why? And then from a fan standpoint, I'm sorry, I don't want to see the same guy for 10 years unless he's like the greatest player in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, your Antonio Browns, Le'Veon Bells, Saquon Barkley's. Those guys I would want to watch for a long time. But in baseball, it's not nearly as an exciting sport. You don't have that that guy who just comes up in every, you might have your Aaron Judge and your Giancarlo Stanton, guys who just crush bombs.
Yeah.
But as a Manny Machado, especially because of his dirty antics that we've seen and the lack of heart playing, I think these 10-year contracts are absolutely absurd. I think
Agreed.
7 years is the maximum amount that a fan wants to see the same guy. In most scenarios, play.
All right. Well, so we're gonna move away from the MLB. Obviously, once the season gets started, we'll have more to talk about with that. It's just we're just gonna give you these little pieces here and there with that. But moving on into basketball, NBA and college basketball after that. So I've got some breaking news for you.
Oh boy.
The Los Angeles Lakers lost to the New Orleans Pelicans with AD sitting because of rest. So, we talked about on the last show, what's going on with the Lakers, what's wrong with them right now. So, I just really want to know how I'm not going to say the word for the lack of, or the respect of the fans, but how the bleep do the Lakers lose to the New Orleans Pelicans without Anthony Davis?
Because they suck. I mean, just straight up, like, if LeBron James doesn't go zero dark 30 mode, they can't compete at a high level. I don't know whether that's LeBron or, he said that the young guys got to buy into it. If basketball is the most important thing in their lives, there's a whole lot of things that could come down to it. Or it can be the fact that they suck. Plain and simple. I mean, Rajon Rondo's past his prime. Lonzo Ball plays good defense, can't shoot worth a crap. Brandon Ingram is very inconsistent. I mean, Kyle Kuzma's nice off the bench. JaVale McGee can finish a dunk 25% of the time, even though I love that guy, but he's inconsistent. I mean, just, and especially with LeBron, having missed 18 games, it's very strange that, he goes to this team and now it's like the latest point in his career, other than like his second year in the league, where he was under 500.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I think the problem is at this point, and they're still fighting to get back into the playoffs. They got that negative record right now. I think the problem is with how much news came out about all the people they wanted to trade away to get Anthony Davis. Those players like under closed doors are probably like, dude, they don't even want us here. Like, what's the point of even like trying at this point? Because they were just about to trade us away anyways. Let's try. Like, why try and potentially get hurt and not be able to, get traded somewhere else in the offseason or signed somewhere else? And I just think they're playing with a lack of heart at this point, and it's hard to, I wouldn't want to share a locker room with a guy who was literally trying to trade me to, help him get a ring and not like care about the guys that he's already with. That's a tough situation to be in, and I think that's the problem with LeBron is when he keeps doing this, like, I got to be the player, I got to be the coach, I got to be the GM. And, if things don't go his way, because he can't control what another franchise does, Magic Johnson can offer up so much, but if the Pelicans don't want to take the bait, they don't have to. And I just think that's kind of shot themselves in the foot. LeBron really probably pissed a lot of people off in that locker room, and although they're not going to, say it to him because he's LeBron James, why would you? I just think that caused a lot of problems, behind closed doors.
Yeah. And, that's not us saying like LeBron's a bad leader.
No,
but
of course.
there are certain things that he's done in his career, especially last year when he literally shipped half the Cavaliers team and brought in new guys. It was like, okay, this is weird. But kind of going from one ex-Cavalier to another, Kyrie Irving says that no team can beat Boston in a 7-game series. And why he has faith in them? Because I'm here.
All right, so as you can see, I'm gonna have to give this a fake news alert. I look, I love Kyrie Irving. I'm gonna defend him as much as I can. While he's a Celtic, because that's how I am. If you're on my team, I've got your back. But I think he's being a little unreasonable with this statement, and I hate when players, they talk this stuff that I just don't think they can truly back up. Yes, a 7-game series. Like, I get what he was trying to say. What he was trying to say was, the playoffs are a different animal because you know what team you're preparing for like the whole time, and that the travel schedules, and he's saying that he doesn't think Boston would lose 4 games out of 7 to any team they play. And so, do I understand what he is trying to say? Yes. But do I agree with his statement? Not at all. Especially when you just lost to the freaking Chicago Bulls with, Zach LaVine going off for 42 on you and Lauri Markkanen adding 37 for the first 2 Bulls teammates to score 35 plus in the game together since Jordan and Pippen. I mean, that is ridiculous. And I think you can't be saying that, especially right after that type of loss. Like if you had just beaten the Golden State Warriors, okay, maybe you got a little swagger, you got a little chip on your shoulder after that. I understand that, but you just lost 2 games in a row after the All-Star break. I think you need to sometimes players, especially him, need to just learn when to shut their mouth and just prove it on the court. Make yourselves look like a scary team and make people not want to play you in a 7-game series.
Yeah, I think it's kind of absurd what he says too, because there are how many teams above them in the East right now? I mean, you got the
They're
Bucks, the Raptors,
4th right now. Yeah, even the
Bucks, Raptors,
Pacers
and
without Oladipo.
Sixers.
No, Sixers are 5th. They got Bucks,
Okay.
Raptors, and the Pacers are 2.5 games ahead without Oladipo.
I mean, yeah. So until you're top in the East, and it's not like you're a half game back. If you're half 2 games back of the top team in the East, maybe then I could say that. But when you're 4th in the East, 2.5 games behind a team without their star player, tone it down a little bit. I love trash talk. I think it's what makes the game fun. I mean, go back and watch KG, Michael Jordan, friggin' Larry Bird. They all talk smack, but they back it up. And you don't get the right to talk smack when you get 42 points scored on you by Zach LaVine, who's not a bad basketball player. But
no, yeah, I wasn't trying to say Zach LaVine's bad. I'm just saying like it's just a bad look when you're saying, "Oh, no one can beat us in 7 games," and you just got 42 dropped on your head. I don't care who it is.
Yeah. But now we have another MVP candidate kind of coming out of the cut. James Harden, is making his case for MVP. Do you think the Rockets are a serious problem in the West? Like, do you think they could take down the Warriors?
I mean, look, the Rockets last year, I think they had the Warriors beat. They were up 3-2 in the Western Conference Finals, and then Chris Paul went down, and obviously, you know what happened. They lost 6 and 7. Warriors go and win their, 3rd title in a row, 2nd title.
3 and 4 years.
3 and 4 years, exactly. I mean, so I think the Rockets have been a serious problem for the Warriors since last year, and I just think with how James Harden's been playing, and I mean, everyone was worried like, oh, once Chris Paul comes back, he'll kind of slow down. Well, Chris Paul's back, and it hasn't slowed down. So, yeah, I do think the Rockets are going to be a problem for them, even though they added Boogie Cousins, even though it's still the same core guys that they had last year. That Rockets team, man, you saw how PJ Tucker played defense on Kevin Durant on that one possession. I mean, I wish I could show the clip. But he literally, I mean, this is just a regular season game. You never hear about good defense in the NBA, but I'm giving props to PJ Tucker for that defense he played on that possession on Kevin Durant. I mean, you see the type of guys they have there in Houston, and as long as everyone's healthy for a playoff series, man, I mean, I definitely think they could beat the Warriors in a playoff series, and it won't be easy, obviously. It's the Golden State Warriors, the defending champs, but I do think the Rockets at full strength are definitely a team that can, take anyone on.
Yeah, I think an underrated move that the Rockets have done to become a serious problem is that the manimal, Kenneth Faried.
Oh yeah,
he's putting up career highs in points and rebounds. He obviously plays great defense. Kind of like their Draymond Green type of guy. But that'll give him a problem with kind of speaking on Draymond Green. I hope you saw the clip of when Draymond got hurt right in front of Steve Kerr and he gave 0. Like he didn't even notice for like 5 seconds. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean he's just
Yeah, I think
Oh,
that the Warriors are gonna I feel like they're gonna implode at some point with Draymond Green kind of blowing up, and then you never know about DeMarcus Cousins, Kevin Durant, so whatever. So if the Rockets can play good defense and start frustrating those guys, they will implode, and then the Rockets are moving on to whatever round.
for sure. Now we're going to talk about, one of my favorite players that I've witnessed, throughout my lifetime so far. Not just because of, him playing for Boston, but just the way he plays overall. Isaiah Thomas. I mean, this is a guy last, overall pick in the draft in 2011, I believe. And I mean, he's finally healthy. He went through a full on like 2 years worth of, or sorry, year and a half, I'd say, of injuries after that amazing playoff run and just season overall with Boston 2 years ago. But he's finally in a good situation with the Denver Nuggets, who I believe are still top three in the West. Um, so I just want to know what do you think we can expect from IT for the rest of the season?
Good bench play. I think he's a guy, gives some good veteran leadership, and especially once they get into playoff time, he can, keep that culture and momentum that they'll have once he comes off the bench. I don't think he needs to start. Um, they got Gary Harris and Jamal Murray, right?
Yep.
So those guys obviously are going to be your starting guys, but you do need that good backup point guard. I think he can service that, pair him on with Will Barton or whoever's come off the bench with him to add that kind of explosive element next to him. And then obviously you got Nikola Jokic, that's probably going to lead that team to however far they go. It's going to be on his back. But IT can take some weight off if he plays well off the bench, and I presume that he will continue to.
Oh yeah, and I mean I agree. Like as much as I'd love to see him back in a starting position, he's definitely just gotta ease back into the league. But I mean, obviously you saw. I mean, I think the last game that they played in, he dropped like 16 points in 16 minutes. Like
Yep.
he's clearly still got it, even though he was hurt for so long. But yeah, definitely I think ease him back in with a bench role. Six man for sure. Um, and I mean, I think the key thing about him is like, say, Jamal Murray is the starting point guard of the Nuggets, and I agree with you there. But say he goes out there and just he's just not on his game, he's just having a bad game, whatever. Now you can put Isaiah Thomas out there instead of like I don't even know who their backup is right now, but you put Isaiah Thomas out there. That's basically just replacing him with another starting point guard. I mean, we've seen what Isaiah Thomas can do at full strength. I mean, he dropped 53 points the day after his sister died in a playoff game. Um, Career high, by the way. And I mean, I think that's just an awesome situation that he got put into. Like, it was hard to see him go to Cleveland and then LA because I knew like both those teams just like he's not doing anything there. That's all worthless. But now he's in Denver and he's got a chance to compete in the West. And I think he's going to be a very big contributor come playoff time, not just like what he can do on the court, but now that he led a team to the Eastern Conference Finals, granted, they got beat pretty badly because he wasn't able to play in it. Um, but he has playoff experience. He knows what it's like to go to a 7 game series, and especially that in that same year, the Bulls were up 2-0 on them, and everyone was like, "Oh, dude, Boston's getting swept this year," and they just flipped. They flipped the switch, and he was able to just bring it right back. And I think they won the series like 4 straight games, 4-2. So he's got a lot of experience as a veteran, and I think he still can just compete at a high level and really benefit that team.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to watch out for. But now, taking it to the young guys, the one and dones, the 4-year starters, college basketball. Do you think the top college basketball team can beat the Phoenix Suns?
Okay, first off, I just want to say I don't understand how the Suns are so bad still. I mean, you have Devin Booker, you have um,
DeAndre Ayton.
Ayton, who you just drafted #1 overall. Um, you also have a guy like Jamal Crawford coming off the bench. Like you have some people on that team, and I'm sure there's others. I'm just not, putting them down right now. But they are. I mean, they have like 12 wins right now or something like that. Maybe that's an understatement, but
They're about to get like
it's in the teens. I know that for a fact.
back-to-back number one overall
Yeah,
pick.
and I mean, it's just I just don't get it. I don't get how they're so bad. I don't know if it's the coaching or whatever, but so if you took a team like Duke, I guess we could say I know UNC just beat them, I know, but we'll just say Duke for all intents and purposes is the number one team in college basketball, and you take that team that has 3 out of 4 guys projected to go,
Top five.
top 5. And I'm sorry, but there's nothing that tells me they couldn't at least compete with the Phoenix Suns, if not beat them.
Yeah.
And I know most sports people are like, "Oh, you can't compare, like Alabama to the Cleveland Browns, like of a couple of years ago, like when people would do that thing." Because that's a little different with being such a physical sport. But when it comes to basketball, especially the amount of people that, like you said, just one and done, they could just go like Zion Williamson could have just gone to the NBA right out of high school based on his talent. So obviously the rules don't allow it. Um, but yeah. Honestly, I think the best college team could beat the Phoenix Suns. Yes.
I think the Phoenix Suns' problem is that, again, I don't think anybody buys into that program. I think that's a big part, but also I don't see Devin Booker as a leader. Like, I don't think he's going to be the top guy in that locker room. He's kind of like a Klay Thompson guy to me. Like, he can catch fire, he can put up a lot of points, he'll give you the same amount of points, but he's kind of a quiet, reserved kind of guy. If DeAndre Ayton could come in there and be this monstrous mountain man and be the leader of that team and get everybody, get their act together, then yeah, I think they would be good enough to compete, and they wouldn't suck as bad. Do I think a college basketball team could beat them? I mean, I think they can give them a run for their money, just based on the fact that I think the Suns would win, but it would be close just because they're used to the speed of NBA basketball.
True.
And those games are a little longer. They're an hour, no, 48 minutes long.
Yep.
Compared to 40. So I think those two things could do it. But again, like, if you got a team like Duke who has a bunch of guys that are projected to go in the NBA and, instantly start, you would hope that team could at least compete with a bunch of guys who are in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of, talking about the best teams in college basketball, March Madness is coming up real soon. We're gonna have, oh man,
we gotta have a bracketology special, by the way. We gotta do a special where we do our brackets because I gotta show everyone how bad I am at it.
Let me just say that I think bracketology, like the guy who makes all these brackets, that is the luckiest dude on the face of the planet because his job is like complete BS. Anyway, so putting ourselves in his shoes, who do you think are going to be the number one seeds in this year's tournament?
All right, so just like if we just stop the season right now, right? I don't want to. It's too hard to try to predict the future because, like, I'm just gonna say if we stop the season right now, right? I think you got obviously. I think you got to put Duke as the number one seed. I think maybe UVA. The thing is, I just think there's a lot of ACC teams that could make a case for being number one seed. I think UNC even can make a case for being a number one seed. I think they'll probably end up as a 2 seed unless they continue to play at a high level. If they win against Duke again, this time at home, I think that changes the situation. But just based on the fact that I'm saying if we ended the season right now, I'm just gonna go ahead and say I think Duke, I think Virginia, would be 2 of the number one seeds, and then I think I wanted to say Tennessee, but they've been struggling the past couple of games. I think they're taking themselves out of that conversation. I want to say Nevada is still a pretty highly ranked team, if I'm not mistaken. But it's so hard to say. Kentucky always seems to get a number one seed. I would have said Kansas, but they've played themselves right out of that situation as well. They've been god awful lately. So just as a safe bet, I'll just go ahead and say Kentucky could be in that conversation. And then Gonzaga. Sorry, they're a team that I always forget about because they just play in like a small conference. But Gonzaga is still playing at a high level. They're showing that year in, year out. It doesn't matter who they get; they somehow can compete with anyone, and I think they'll get a number one seed as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. Um, the Duke Virginia kind of thing. Obviously, if you ended the season right now, they're Duke and Virginia are 3-4. So yeah, they'd have to be in. But come tournament time, obviously we had the ACC tournament that'll take somebody down. Um, I think Carolina, Duke, and Virginia, two of those three will make the top seeds in the tournament. Um, all I know is if Duke's the number one seed, they will get to play over on the East Coast, and if Carolina is, we are playing on the West Coast every time without fail.
Yeah.
I think Kentucky's been playing extremely well. I think they deserve to be number one seed, especially if going through the conference tournament. If they throttle Tennessee like they did again, it's almost a guarantee. And then Gonzaga's always good this year. Rui Hachimura, he's playing fantastic. Just that team is very soundly built, and I think that they will be a very good number one seed come tournament time.
Oh yeah.
And speaking of number one seeds, number one seed of Virginia, boy, would it be fun to have another 1v16 upset.
Oh yeah. Obviously we'll need to see the who is the 1 versus the 16. But then again, no one thought Virginia was going to lose last year. No one thought, UMBC, the team with the freaking, puppy dog is their mascot. No one thought that team was going to go in there and win. And it happened in our backyard in Spectrum Center, where the Hornets play. UMBC, I kept getting alerts. So, we didn't go to that round. We went to the second round, but we kept getting alerts on our phone. UMBC up with 10 minutes left. Okay, it's kind of interesting. UMBC up with 5 minutes left. This might actually happen. And it did. The first ever 16 seed, the top of 1 seed. And that was wild, man. And then we got to see that team in action against Kansas State. And although they didn't get the win, they were a scrappy team. And they almost got to the Sweet 16. And that alone was just really cool to witness. So do I think it can happen again? For sure. I just think there's a lot of teams out there in college basketball that don't get the credit they deserve because they don't have the big names. But I mean, some teams, it doesn't matter the amount of talent you have. Sometimes it just matters how hard you play. And I know this kind of sounds like a blanket statement, oh, anyone would say that, but sometimes that's all it takes is who's gonna hustle more, who's gonna play defense, because some of these talented kids don't want to play defense anymore, and that can be tough on them. So I think it could happen. Obviously, it'll be a little easier to predict once we know the field.
I mean, do I think it'll happen? No. Would I like it to happen? Yeah. Just don't be Carolina, obviously. Out of the 1 seeds we just listed, I don't think any of them will lose to a 16 seed.
Yeah.
Barring any crazy injuries like Zion Williamson, actually tore his ACL and we didn't know about it. I don't think it'll happen this year. It'd be really fun to see, because I do think that those teams from the smaller conferences, that they punch their ticket to the tournament by winning their conference championship. Those guys have proven themselves to win. They bust their asses to win. And especially if you have a group full of seniors, you got 3 seniors or 4 seniors on the starting lineup. Those guys are going to go balls to the wall as hard as they can to win a game in the tournament. I mean, not a whole lot of people can say they won a game in the tournament, much less say they were on a 16 seed that beat a 1 seed. I think that those type of teams, especially if they got those seniors and scrappy guys, can win. Out of the teams this year, I don't think it will happen, but I'm always for it.
For sure.
But that's all the time we got for today. We'll be coming at you Thursday with some more sports news. But make sure you subscribe, like the video, follow us on Twitter. It's in our YouTube bio. Check our channel out. We love all you guys for love and support. Make sure you join the Attitude Era. Turn on the notifications, know when we go live and when the video drops if you missed it. But I'm Daniel.
I'm Drew, and I just wanted to also add, make sure to spread the word. If anything, that's the most important thing you do. Other sports fans out there, let them know what we're doing, what we're chasing our dreams out here with this, just having a good time, and we'd love to see some other new faces stop by. So as you said, that's Daniel. I'm Drew, and that's going to be the end of our show today.
Thank you,
We'll see you
guys.
on Thursday.